I loved when I could eat it. Chinese cultures have doughy buns. And Americans, well, have sliced white bread. It's the building block of a meal, a staple in every diet. And it was this way in the world of the Bible, too. Bread was a common, ordinary meal. And it's the very commonness of bread that it makes it the perfect metaphor for our lives. If we're honest, most of what we do is pretty ordinary. We get up, go to work, paid or unpaid. I know how many of you volunteer. We tinker at our hobbies. Ken, are you here? Yeah. Mow the lawn, and try to do, tinker at our hobbies and try to do our best. And we shuttle kids around or grandkids, mow the lawn and shop for groceries. And for the most part, nothing about our daily lives sets us apart from the people around us, really. It's just life, like bread, ordinary. And maybe that's how you see yourself. Maybe you've settled for a life that may not matter that much. Or you're living with an unsustainable manic drive, grasping and grabbing for something that always just kind of feels out of reach. And maybe you're wrestling with an unkind voice, the one that says that you just don't matter, that you're less than and never enough. Well, I have good news for you. There is more to this life than what we see. Throughout Scripture, we discover that nothing is as common as it seems, and not even bread. Bread fell from heaven as a sign of God's provision. Bread became a metaphor for the law of the Lord, of Jesus. Jesus fed the multitudes with loaves of bread and referred to himself as the bread of life. Then on the night that he was handed over to suffering and death, Jesus took bread, blessed it, broke it, and gave it to his disciples as a picture of his body being given for the life of this world. And Luke records 3 stories in his gospel about Jesus taking bread in his hands, blessing it, breaking it, and giving it. And I want us to look at the first of those stories today.
Luke 9, 10-12. When the apostles returned, they described for Jesus what they had done. Taking them with him, Jesus withdrew privately to a city called Bethsaida. When the crowds figured it out, they followed him. He welcomed them, spoke to them about God's kingdom, and healed those who were sick. When the day was almost over, the 12 came to him and said, "Send the crowd away so that they can go to the nearby villages and countryside and find lodging and food, because we are in a deserted place."
So we observe several things here. First of all, the needs of the people are overwhelming. Secondly, resources are apparently in short supply. And the impulse to send the people away is not entirely uncompassionate, it's also practical. And if we're honest, this is how we feel when we see the needs of our friends, family, neighbors. It can all feel kind of overwhelming. Turn on the news and we're bombarded by more tragedies and hardships. Scroll through Facebook and you see the difficult doctor's diagnoses or unexpected losses that people you know are dealing with. A simple sad face emoji just really won't cut it. And you may reply and say you're praying for them, but what can you really do? It's just too much. And on top of that, you've got your own stuff to deal with. Your own life is no walk in the park. Send them away, Jesus, we want to say. But Jesus won't let them, the disciples or us off the hook.
Luke chapter 9, 13 to 17. He replied, "You give them something to eat." But they said, "We have no more than 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish, unless we go and buy food for all these people." They said this because about 5,000 men were present. Jesus said to his disciples, "Seat them in groups of about 50. They did so, and everyone was seated. He took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, looked up to heaven, blessed them, and broke them, and gave them to the disciples to set before the crowd. Everyone ate until they were full, and the disciples filled 12 baskets with the leftovers.
Jesus blessed the bread. Jesus broke the bread. Jesus gave the bread. Those 3 actions, as we said this morning in Bible study, changed the whole story between God and his people. A desolate place became a place of abundance. A desert became a banquet. And a story that began with not enough ended with there being more than enough. And this is what happens when Jesus takes something that we think is just ordinary bread and blesses it, breaks it, and gives it. I think those 3 words can change the story for you too. Jesus took bread, blessed it by giving thanks to the Father, broke it, and gave it. Bread in the hands of Jesus is blessed, broken, and given. And so it is for you. Your life, as common and as ordinary or extraordinary as bread, in Jesus' hands becomes something so much more. In the hands of Jesus, your life becomes blessed. And this blessedness is not about accumulating or achieving more. Say it again. This blessedness is not about accumulating or achieving more. I know I get caught up in that trap. Blessedness is about having your true identity recovered and your true calling revealed for you and for all. It is to be given a new name. Once you were a sinner, now you're a saint. Once you were far off, and now you are a cherished family member. The Eastern Orthodox theologian Alexander Schmemann wrote, "God blesses everything God creates. And in biblical language, this means that God makes all creation the sign and the means of God's presence and wisdom, love and revelation." In the hands of Jesus, your life, it becomes broken, but in a new way. And there are several different kinds of brokenness, and we will talk about a little more of that in week 3 of this series. There is a brokenness that comes from our frailty, our finiteness, our limitations. There is a brokenness that comes from our own failure, our sin, and our participation in the spread of wickedness. And there is a brokenness that is the pain of living in a fallen world, our suffering and our pain. But all these kinds of brokenness, they can be placed in Jesus' hands. And when you place the brokenness of your failure, frailty, and suffering in Jesus' hands, you become open to the grace of God. This brokenness is not about wallowing in your sin or fixating on how miserable maybe we are. To be broken is to allow the grace of God to humble us, to lead us into vulnerability with others, and to transform our heart. Brokenness becomes openness in the hands of Jesus. After all, bread that is not broken cannot be shared. right? Bread that is not broken cannot be shared. And in the hands of Jesus, your life becomes given. You realize you are not here for yourself. Life with Jesus is deeply personal, but never private. The openness that comes from being broken is meant to lead you outward. There is a hunger in the world around us, a deep groan for something more. When your life becomes blessed and broken in Jesus' hands, he gives you out for the life of the world. You become the way others find the bread of life. But to be that way, you must first experience the blessing and embrace the brokenness. And only then will we be consecrated to bring change in really powerful ways.
Luke 9, verse 16. He took the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, looked up to heaven, blessed them, and broke them, and gave them to the disciples to set before the crowd.
One of the remarkable things about this story is that Jesus gives the bread back to the disciples. Why involve the disciples at all? Because that's what God does. God made human beings in his own image to reflect God's rule into the world. From the beginning, God chose to involve human as his collaborators, right? From Genesis. Jesus had told the disciples to give the people something to eat, and they wanted to send the people away. The disciples saw the crowd as the problem, and Jesus saw the crowd as the disciples' responsibility and as God's opportunity. And we can't quite know what happened during or after Jesus' blessing of the bread. One theory is that once bread and fish was being distributed, others began sharing what they had brought, hidden amongst many layers of clothing. But now, because of Jesus' miraculous blessing, what was not enough has become more than enough. And weary disciples who were willing to be the bearers of bad news to hungry people now became the carriers of good news to those same people. That's what Jesus does. He blesses us and takes our brokenness and turns it into something that can be for the good of someone else. Purpose is restored and the calling is back on track. Blessedness and brokenness are for the sake of givenness. I think the thing that we must not miss in this whole text is who is really the hero of the story. Ultimately, this is not about a boy who gave up his lunch, nor is it about disciples who learned a valuable lesson. This is about Jesus, the generous host. And the text opens by showing us how Jesus responds to the crowd following him to this remote place.
Luke 9, verse 11. When the crowds figured it out, they followed him. He welcomed them, spoke to them about God's kingdom, and healed those who were sick.
Jesus is the host. Jesus welcomed the people. Jesus taught the people. Jesus healed the people. And Jesus fed the people. Jesus prepares the feast. Not only is Jesus the one who welcomes the people, Jesus feeds them. With Jesus, there is always an abundance. More and more and more. Grace is always more.
Luke 9, verse 17. Everyone ate until they were full, and the disciples filled 12 baskets with the leftovers.
Jesus turned a desolate place into a place of abundance. And that's what Jesus does. And so the question is, do we see it? Do we see the world as Jesus sees it? You have to wonder if Jesus really saw their location as a remote and desolate place. How he differed from many of us is really that he knew that wherever he went, there was the blessing and fullness and glory of God. So we don't have to be epic, and we don't have to be spectacular. We can really just be bread. Just as bread seems common and ordinary, but is actually crammed full of glory. So your life is actually miraculous and holy. And this is all Jesus' work, right? And that's really good news. This is what happens when Jesus takes us into his hands. We need our eyes open to see God at work. Open my eyes that they may see, right? Open my eyes that I may see. The Hebrew poets and prophets talked about the relationship between God and his world like this. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof, the world and those who dwell within. For he has founded upon the seas and established it upon the rivers. Be exalted, O God, above the heavens. Let your glory be over all the earth. And one called to another and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. The whole earth is full of God's glory. God, the holy God, the God who is above and beyond everything and everyone else, his glory is filling not only the heavens, but also this earth. So think about that for a moment. God is holy and his glory fills the earth. God is not only above and beyond his creation, he is also somehow within it. God is holy and he is filling the common with glory. The heavens are open above the earth. You know, that's not just the sun signaling the start of a new day when we wake up. It's the witness of the steadfast love of God that will always break the darkness. That's not just a dinner with friends. It's the music of laughter reminding us that we're not alone. That's not just the sound of a crying baby in the night and robbing us of sleep. That is the evidence that your child is loved and she believes or he believes that you will care for her or him. These are all gifts from God, ordinary yet extraordinary, earthy and yet filled with glory. And sure, things can always be reduced to technical descriptions and itemized particles, just as a great symphony can be explained as a mathematical sequence of sonic intervals. But music is more than math. Right, Connie? Right, Linda? And life is more than a sum of its events. Right? More than a sum of its events. In each moment, in each breath and thought and act, something more is going on. It is not merely ordinary. And surely the Lord is in this place, the place where we are right now. And we might not feel it, but it's true. The whole earth is full of his glory. So place your life in Jesus' hands. Your ordinary can be and is, I believe, crammed full of glory. And your not enoughness can become more than enough. And your every day can become full of purpose, whether you realize it, recognize it, or not. All things are possible in Jesus' hands. Amen.